3 and The Sims Medieval, and what do both games have in common?
It's actually a lot easier to start with what they have in common, because at the common they have the heart of the game. And the heart of the game for both of them is that you create, control, and nurture characters, and that you're telling stories with and about those characters. That's the central tenet of what we're using from The Sims in The Sims Medieval. A lot of other stuff. I can't say everything else has changed, but a lot has changed. Another thing that's similar, we still have the Create a Sim tool, we still have the customization tools, Create a Style, we have relationships between the characters, but most of the feature set has changed. We wanted to help players tell really medieval stories, and to do that we had to come up with a brand new feature set.
Okay, so why did you call The Sims Medieval and not The Sims 3 Medieval?
That's a great question. I think when we started to make the game, some people at EA were thinking, hey, maybe we'll just take The Sims 3 and we'll put it in the Middle Ages. It'll be like about little people living their lives in a little village. But when we started really working on the game, we realized that if you take people and they've got their 6 basic needs, it's a game just about the commonalities that we all have as humans. It loses the sense of uniqueness that it's medieval. It's like, what's special about them? They're just like regular people we meet every day, but they're stuck in this place where everyone dresses a little differently and the buildings are a little different. So we didn't want to take the Sims 3 gameplay. We wanted to be free to make something that we hope is the start of a brand new franchise.
But if you wanted to, you could have made it as an expansion pack.
No, we could not have made it as an expansion pack. We talked about that, and we decided that an expansion pack would just be like a dress-up party version of the Middle Ages. We don't want to have support for any of the objects that are modern. We wanted to be free to have a brand new art style that's totally different from what you have in The Sims. We wanted to be free to have a brand new feature set that would really differentiate the game and make it fit the medieval period. And if it was an expansion pack, you know, it would kind of feel like going to a Renaissance fair, but not like playing a game that was really made for medieval.
Okay, can you explain me how the game starts after the first hero is created and how it evolves? In a few words.
At the very start of the game, you pick your ambition. The tutorial then takes you through placing your first building, which is the central part of the castle, and bringing in your monarch. So you choose king or queen. Now, that's the only hero that you have, so the number of stories that you can play out, number of quests is limited. You pick a quest, you carry it out, you earn kingdom points. Once you've done enough quests, you have enough kingdom points to bring in a second building and a second hero. Now you have a very interesting question, because you can bring in any building you want. So now it ties into what is your ambition, what kind of stories do you want to tell, which of the hero characters are interesting to you. You may not end up bringing them all in, so who do you want to play with? As you bring people in, the quest tree is set up like a tree. And so, for example, I showed you the quest to when the king is sick. You couldn't take on that quest unless you had at least one of the hero characters who could be the leader and one of the hero characters who could be the follower. So the more hero characters you have, the more different types of stories you can tell. So it's a loop of going on quests, earning kingdom points, bringing in more hero sims until you've used up all your quest points, and then you get an achievement showing how well did you do at your ambition that you chose at the beginning.
So what are the players' options in the build mode of The Sims Medieval?
Well, we have the buy mode, so you're moving objects around, you're replacing them. There's a lot of objects that get unlocked over the course of the game. You can customize the way that the objects look, but you don't have build mode, meaning you don't move the walls and the floor, the foundation, and the roof. We thought about that a lot. What would castle construction be like? We realized that to help support stories, we wanted every building to look like it was handmade and different from every other building. The Sims 3 works perfectly because we live in a time when everything is mass-produced, standard right angles, uniform thicknesses for walls and heights of walls. So if you make a game that needs all those things, it looks right. But if you made a medieval world and tried to build out a world like that, it would look like this room. It doesn't look medieval, it looks modern. So to make a world that looks handmade, the way everything was back then, we had to make it handmade.
Sure. Okay, medieval is also known as the Dark Ages. Will you show some of the nasty things out of that time, or will you feature more the romantic, mystery-eyed fantasy picture of medieval?
That really is up to the player and what kind of stories they want to tell. If they want to lean into romantic stories, people having babies, you know, illicit affairs or whatever they like, that's the kind of stories they can tell. If they're more interested in making sure people get sent to the stocks or the fighting bandits in the woods, somebody's getting set to the pit of judgment where they're going to be executed, they can do that. Sims Medieval use the Sims 3 engine, a modified version. Can you tell me what has been done to make the game look better? We modified a lot. We started with technology that was in the Sims studio. and we've changed a great deal of it to create a totally new art style and a new feature set, new routing. So the things that we could take that were not dependent on the modern day objects and that were good fits for the game we wanted to make, we used, and the rest we got rid of and made great.
Okay, during your presentation earlier that day, you mentioned that there are two churches in the game. Which role actually plays religion in the game?
Well, the Middle Ages were a time where religion was pretty dominant, so we didn't want to make a game that didn't have religion in it. But we didn't want a real religion because that's going to be very sensitive for people. So we made up two fictional religions, the Paterans and the Jacobins, the followers of Peter, the followers of Jacob. They both worship the Watcher, which is sort of you are us, the watching the game, but they have a very different approach. The Jacobins are in this big Gothic cathedral. They try to control the population through fear. The Paterans are more like Franciscan monks. They're very nice, they want to be popular, they have a very humble place, and there are quests in which they will compete. Sometimes they have to work together to fight off a third religion. So if you're interested in those stories, you will bring in those heroes and those buildings and play those quests. And if the idea of religion in the Middle Ages is not interesting to you, you don't have to bring in the buildings or take those quests.
Okay, there are shadow effects of the passing clouds on the ground. Will there be other weather effects in the game?
We're still looking at what we're doing with the graphics engine. We have to balance off our goals to make the world as beautiful as it can be, with also to have as many of our players be able to play it. We want to keep to roughly the same specs as The Sims 3. So those kind of questions tend to be performance questions. So really on a week-by-week basis, you put in really cool new features. Everyone goes, oh my god, that's gorgeous, and wow, the frame rate is really bad. And then people are struggling to make the frame rate better, and then you see where you end up.
So, but in theory, it was possible if the hardware would be good enough. In theory.
Yeah, although I don't think we would invest in special effects that the majority of our players couldn't use. So we'd have to tune the performance so that they wouldn't be high end.
Okay, during the development process, did you ever thought about giving the Sims a real voice instead of let them speak Simlish? Wouldn't that be a plus regarding the atmosphere?
Well, we actually did completely redo Simlish. I think if the Sims spoke a recognizable language, it would get repetitive. You would recognize that they said that same word and that same intonation. We're much more sensitive to it when it's a language that we know. But we did try to see how can we have a completely new sound for Simlish. We have actors in the studio re-recording everything that they wanted to do, putting the sounds together so it sounds medieval. Okay,
so right after the release, people are not able to upload anything to exchange or to download something from the Sims store? That's right. Oh.
No, right when we release the game, we do not have support for the exchange. We want to see what our players are interested in. We think there's going to be a lot of fun things people are going to talk about and ask for, and then we'll see what's our priority list, what's the biggest bang for the buck to give people what they're asking for.
Okay, do you have already plans to bring the Sims Medieval to the console later on? Maybe?
I think plans might be too strong a word, but we definitely recognize that the console and Medieval is a terrific fit. It's something that we're talking about, so I wouldn't rule it out.
So, okay, which places or ages do you personally think would be nice to be presented in a future spin-off of The Sims? I heard that Rod Humble might have said there might be a Sim space.
It's possible to take The Sims backwards in history and forward into a fictional future. It's also possible to do a lot more with the Middle Ages and build on that. So I don't want to speculate about the future because I personally am really focused on doing a lot more with the Middle Ages.
Okay, thank you very much for the interview.
Okay, thank you. Sure.